They say putting pen to paper is one of the best ways you can commit something to memory, but you never have a pen when you need it. You're always in that complete desperation phase of trying to search for a pen and paper at the same time. That is, unless you have an S24 Ultra, where the pen is safely stored inside the phone's S-hole, and the phone is the paper. But this humble S Pen that sits inside the S-hole can do so much more than just write. This video will show you every single way that you can use the S Pen inside your Galaxy S24 Ultra. Let's go. The S Pen can do a lot. So today we're going to break down exactly what you can do with it. I'm going to do this by looking at different areas that the S Pen works across and different ways you can implement it across those areas. Starting with what happens when you pull the pen out and also what happens when you wave it around like a magic wand. Let's get into it. Starting with what happens when you take it out. The first instance when you take it out, you get the S Pen menu, which is annoying. But I found that out last week when I did the camera feature video where I used the S Pen to demonstrate gestures. But further to that, when the phone is actually locked, you can still use the S Pen. It's called Screen Off Memo. It actually began way back with the Galaxy Note 5, long time ago. The way Screen Off Memo works is when you pull the pen out while the screen is locked, you can write directly onto the lock screen. It gives you multiple pages for you to be able to go down between, but you can write yourself a little note here. Doesn't matter which sort of note you like. And alongside that too, you can have different pen styles that you can change with colors. It's mainly the colors. When you're ready to save this note, you simply just pop the pen back into its slot and it'll save it. No harm, no foul, go straight into Samsung Notes. But there's another thing you can do with Screen Off Memo and the S Pen. You can pin it to your always on display. So once you've wrote yourself your little note, whether that be pick up bread, so if you're on your way home from work and you want to remind yourself of that, rather than writing a cumbersome reminder and having it shout in your face when it's time to remind you about it, you can actually write this note down and using the pin icon at the top corner, pin it to your always on display screen. Beautiful. Just a nice, gentle sort of note that's sort of sitting there, and every time you glance at your phone, oh, you see it. It's nice. And there's some things you can do to interact with this as well. You can expand it. Great. You can edit it. So if you tap the edit icon, you can add to it and then hit save. Or if you're done with it, double tap on the X and it'll get rid of it. Really clever and just really nice way to launch into your S Pen experience. Now, once the phone is unlocked, you have some other things that the S Pen can do. Well, almost. I forgot to turn it on. When the S Pen is ejected when the screen is on and unlocked, you'll get the Air Command menu. However, you do need to go into the settings to see if this is toggled on. I think by default it is, but I had it turned off from last year. There's a whole bunch of other settings in here that you can toggle on and off to do with pulling out the pen, whether it be creating a note straight away or whether that be opening Air Command. It's completely up to you. Air Command can also be launched by pressing the button when it's hovering close to the screen too, so you could turn that on in the settings also. But once the Air Command is open, you can actually edit the apps and settings that are here. So if you go into the settings and into Air Command, you can change what appears there. Now, in the apps list that you've got on the left, there's broken into two sections. The top section is the S Pen features and the bottom is just any app that's on the phone. Now you can add as many of these or not as many of these S Pen features as you like. And you can also add apps. So if you tap on an app from Air Command, you can open it. Choose S Pen related ones if you like the camera, but the S Pen Actions stuff is probably the one you want. You can also change the view of Air Command, so if you don't like the big expanded view, you can make it a compact sort of list as well. Now let's get into the stuff within Air Command that you can actually do. Firstly, and probably most importantly, it's to create a note or to open Samsung Notes. I'll save them for later when I talk about the S Pen and its partnership with Samsung Notes because there's a lot that can do. Let's head into Smart Select, which is the first thing that you see underneath both of those things. Smart Select is my favorite feature to use. Whether it be from the Edge panel, which I use most of the time, or the S Pen to give me a bit more control, the S Pen with Smart Select allows you to use the pen, hover it over something, drag a square over it, or lasso something around it, and then capture that portion of the screen. And then you can do whatever you like with it. You can share it from there. You can try and edit out parts of it using the little S Pen toggles because it's got like a little snap feature as well, which works okay. Part of the Smart Select feature too, though, is GIF creation. So if you wanted to create a GIF using the S Pen, you can. So if you've got a YouTube video that you're watching, you can put the Smart Select GIF over the top of that YouTube video and then record. And then it'll record that and save it as a GIF. Make your own GIFs. Be creative. Underneath Smart Select is Screen Write. This is probably the most convenient use case for the S Pen and screenshotting, because basically you press this and it'll just capture the screen. Bang. And then immediately give you options to write on it. So you've got the pen toolbar down the bottom, and straight away you can circle things and arrow and whatever it is you want to do and save it. You can use this to give instructions to my parents, probably be a good one for screenshotting home screens and drawing over the top of it, or you can screenshot a map and circle a place to meet and then send instructions that way. Really clever and a nice easy way to use the S Pen. Within the Air Command menu too is the app pen up. Now, one thing about Samsung apps, and it's a bit ranty here, is that they take a while the first time you launch them to get into it. Even if you launched it on a previous phone, you have to go through the whole rigmarole again of getting it set up. Permissions, log in with your account. It's quite annoying, but rant over, because PenUp by itself is actually a really good app if you're into drawing and coloring. There is so much in here that you can do around the world of art, learning to draw, and just general mucking around with pens and brushes, that if you want this as a dedicated video, I'm happy to dive deep into it, because it's too much for just this video alone. Just know that within here you can do so many different things. You can trace over pictures that you've put in, which I haven't demonstrated, but you can also then learn to draw and follow along to someone else showing you how to draw something. It's all in here, and it all sort of goes into your Samsung account. So give it a go, but if you want a deeper dive, let me know. Next in here is Write on Calendar. Does as suggested. It opens up the calendar and allows you to write on the calendar using the pen. So whether you want to highlight a certain date and write birthday, you can do that. And you can also do that from the calendar itself, because the calendar has a little pencil icon which you tap on, and again does the same thing. But that shortcut in Air Command exists, so you can bypass needing to go into calendar first. Next in here is Magnify. Magnify does, again, as advertised. If you are in something that doesn't allow you to pinch to zoom, most apps, for example, are like this. You can use the Magnify with the S Pen to actually hover over it, and then it will magnify that part that you're hovering. What's great with this is you don't need to touch the screen, and that's the beauty of the S Pen. By now we know it uses that Wacom technology where it doesn't actually need to touch the screen, it just needs to be close to activate. All wirelessly, and doesn't actually require any power to do this. And this magnify feature takes advantage of that, because you get close to the screen and you hover over something and it zooms it up. You can change the magnification level, so I think it goes up to 300%. And you can also change the size of the square. Again, really great for apps because it allows you to get in close, especially if you can't pinch to zoom. The last two are ones you kind of have to bring in yourself, but Bixby Vision, you can use the S Pen to hover over an image or text, and Bixby Vision will do its best to either translate that for you or copy the text, and also show you similar images in Pinterest. You can do this through the camera as well. This kind of reminds me of Google's new Circle to Search feature. And Bixby Vision's been doing this for a long time. But if you hover it over an image, it'll search Pinterest and show you similar images in Pinterest. Whereas Google obviously has the Google image library to search through and the Google search engine. Whereas this is just using Pinterest. All the same though, you can use it if you like. And the last one here is Translate. This was great. This came in with the Note 7. And the Note 7 with its S Pen was such a powerful tool. This is still just in here, it's just very tucked away. The Translate feature, you can hover the pen over a body of text or a single word, you change it at the top corner, and then it will translate that text for you. Great. You can determine the source language, the output language, and then just hover the pen and it'll do the rest. Clever. And again, works great for things that you can't quite copy and select the text from, you just do this way. Obviously, we know there's a lot more translation features built into the S24, but the S Pen, still having this, gives you another avenue. Okay, Samsung Notes time, because this is probably the one that people associate with the S Pen the most. And that is because it's pretty much the one that started the whole S Pen craze, although it was S Note when it started, but I digress. The S Pen and Samsung Notes pretty much go together like ham and cheese, bacon and eggs, chocolate and milk. That last one, maybe not as obvious, but you get my point. I've done a Samsung Notes deep dive live on the channel, but I will need to update it because it now incorporates Galaxy AI, so I'll need to add that in as well. Okay, first, before you get into Samsung Notes and the writing experience and all of that, let's go into the settings and look at the toolbar, because inside the toolbar add-ons, you'll need to know some of these toggles. Most of these are turned on I think mine are because they smart switched across. But if you haven't used Samsung Notes before, go in here and just turn them all on. I'm going to go through individually what each of them do, so don't stress because they're a lot of fun. Okay, the writing experience itself is sensational. Samsung have worked really hard and got a lot of attention to detail about the different brushes you can use, the different sounds they make. So like the sound of a pen and a pencil will sound different to a paintbrush as you're sort of writing on the screen, which I think is really cool. And Samsung going to that level of detail is a nice touch. The responsiveness adds into that as well. Samsung have worked on like tilt and pressure sensitivity. So if you press harder, if you move it over to the sort of this way, I don't know. If you press harder, if you move it, different angles, it sort of will react differently on the screen. So you've got all of that sort of to look forward to when you're using the pen within Samsung Notes. Now let's dive into the toolbar, because this is the one that sort of changes how you interact with Samsung Notes with the S Pen. The first two are different pen styles. So on the left, the very left side, you have pens and sort of pencils, and you can change between them. What I really like is each individual one, you can change the thickness of it, and you can change transparency with some of them as well, which is really nice. And you can also change the different sort of way it reacts on the screen. So like for a marker, you can have it react sort of naturally, where it will be thicker when you start and then thin out as you write, or you can have it just be thick all the time. You can change colors. So if you like different colors with the pens, you've got that option down the bottom. What I really like is the option to add pens and pen types to favorites. So if you always use blue with this pen type, add it to favorite. And what Samsung also do is through the gesture control with the S Pen is allow you to change using the pen's button. So press the button, a single press will move you forward to the favorite pen, double press will go back to the previous one. So you can cycle between the pens that you've got stored in your favorites this way. The highlighter styles are the same. There's 4 different highlighters in there. 2 of them are highlighters freeform, 2 of them are straight line highlighters. So what I really like with the highlighters is the fact that you can do this over PDF. So if you've got a PDF document, whether it be for uni or for work, and you want to highlight specific parts of that document, you could do that. And you could do it freeform, or you can do it with a straight line highlighter. The choice is yours from that highlighter menu. Same as the pens, you can add highlighters to favorites as well. It's basically the same interaction, just with highlighters instead of pens. Next to that is the eraser. Now you can click on the eraser here manually, and then it'll be switched to the eraser, and you can change the eraser style. So you can have it erase the exact line that you drew, or you can have it just erase a surface area. It's up to you. But probably the best way to activate the eraser is without having to interrupt your flow. If you just hold down the pen button when you're close to the screen and keep it held, that'll activate the eraser and keep it on. Much better. Next to that is the select tool. The select tool encompasses a lot of some of the other toolbar features into it just by selecting the text that you've wrote down. So I'll show you a couple. I'm not going to go through all of them. But if you select a text that you've wrote, and let's say it's crooked, you can use something called align handwriting. There's another way to do this too, but I'll get to that in a moment. What align handwriting will do is through the toggles that you see appear on the screen, it'll correct the text. So you press on it once you're happy with the toggles you've chosen, and it'll completely straighten it out. Very, very good, especially when you write on a phone screen, you'll tend to write on an angle. So this will make it straight and look uniformed. You can also select and move text around, which I think is really nice. You're not bound by the order that you wrote it in, because on paper you can't do that, whereas this way you can. Next to that select tool in the toolbar, after you skip past the redo and undo buttons, which as you can see work quite well, you have this smart sort of contextual button, which will basically clean up your handwriting. That's what it's called. When you press this and it recognizes there's handwriting there, it'll highlight the section that the handwriting is in and give you 2 options. It'll give you auto align, and it'll give you convert to digital text. So similar to the selection tool, but this is just isolated just for these 2 things, and does exactly the same as advertised. It'll correct your alignment, and it'll also convert it to text should you need to. When you hit convert to text, what it will do is it will give you the option to add it to the document as a separate page, or copy it. So if you wanted to then copy it out into somewhere else, you can do that. The next one to that is handwriting to text. So this will basically just allow you to write freeform handwriting and then immediately convert it to digital text on the line that you're writing on. What's really clever with this tool is it brings up a toolbar, a floating toolbar. So if you need to, you can backspace, you can enter a space, you can add in emojis without having the intrusion of the full keyboard in your face and blocking your screen. It's actually quite good at recognizing the terrible handwriting that I have and actioning it as digital text. So yeah, use this one if you like writing stuff down but prefer to read digital text. The next one to that is this big A. What this A will actually do is allow you to change the format of the text you've wrote down. So if you wrote something all in one color, let's say you're writing notes for an assignment or in a lecture or in a meeting, and you wrote it all in blue, but you want to really highlight the statement parts of that text, you could change the format of certain lines. You can make things thicker, you can make it a different color, and then all you need to do is roll over it with the pen and it'll just change it thicker and also change the color. Done. So that way you can have some separation in that document you've wrote down, so you can highlight and specify certain things that you like. It doesn't work on digital text, only on handwriting. So just note that down. Second to last in the toolbar, the last one is a lock function, which locks activating the screen at all. Don't know why I've been told that. I haven't even demonstrated it. Easy Writing Pad. Easy Writing Pad will allow you to write a little bit neater, because obviously we tend to write quite big on a phone screen for some reason. Easy Writing Pad gives you that freedom to do that, but then makes it small on the screen itself. So down the bottom, it brings up this big window, and then at the top, you'll see a smaller window. You can drag that smaller window around on the screen, that's where the writing is going to go. So if you write in the big window down the bottom, you'll see it gets placed in smaller text at the window at the top. And there's different sort of toolbars and functions for you to move it, press enter, and it'll move that for you, and you can just keep writing. The whole idea is to allow your writing to be a little bit more legible and formatted, so you don't just have this big scribble everywhere. So rather than correcting it later, you have to do it first up. That's the beauty of how this works, is there's so many options for you to do things in different sort of order. And Samsung give it to you all. And the last one here is called Auto Shape. You just have this selected, and when you draw a shape, it will correct it for you as best it can. It can't fix terrible drawing. So if you draw a triangle, it'll give you a triangle. If you draw a pretty bad circle, it'll complete it as a nice circle. If you draw a terrible square, it'll give you a not so terrible square. You still have to make sure you give it the shape outline, but it will do a good job at correcting that for you. It can't correct already drawn stuff. You do need to draw it with this turned on, just so you know. Now within Samsung Notes, there is some gestures. So I'll get into the gestures more in a moment, but for Samsung Notes context, if you hold the button and swipe up, it'll go up a page. If you hold the button and go down, it'll go down a page. If you hold the button and do the loop circle, it'll zoom in on the page. There's some cool gestures within Samsung Notes, and I really like how Samsung have done that. Now on to the gestures, because as we know, the S Pen is this little magic wand that sits inside your phone that can do magic stuff. Samsung first introduced the gesture concept with the Note 9, an S Pen that could be a remote for your phone. Everyone was on board, but it's evolved. Samsung gave it more and made the battery last longer, and even gave it a little gyroscope to do little gestures. And that's where the fun began. You can see in the actual gestures menu what it's programmed to do. So you can see the little gestures that you can do for just UI interaction. You can see the app that holding down the button will open, and you can change that app should you want to. It's launched, it's camera by default. We'll get to that in a moment. You can see the apps that the gestures work inside of. Most notably, you can see third-party stuff like Microsoft, where you can use it in PowerPoint, for example. It's all in there, and it all gives you that flexibility to control using the S Pen. Starting with the camera, when you hold down the button, it will launch. And then once you're inside the camera, pressing the button again will snap a photo, for example. But that's not all you can do. If you are using the phone on a tripod, you can use the S Pen to change camera modes. Hold it down, swipe to the right, and it will then go that way. Hold it down and go the other way, it'll go that way. If you're in video and you start recording using the button, if you hold down the button, it will pause that video. Hold it down again to resume, and press to stop. Very simple interactions that the S Pen can give you. You can also hold the button and flick it up, and it will switch cameras to the front. A double press will also do the same thing. What's also really cool is you can zoom. And the way you do this is if you hold down the button and do a circle and keep the button held down, it will just keep zooming. And then if you hold it down and go back the other way, it'll come back out. It's just got so much about it, and I really enjoy the flexibility of doing that, especially for my YouTube videos. I've got the S23 Ultra recording the B-roll, and I use the S Pen to start and stop the video. Just having that little toggle just gives me that really sense of freedom no other phone is going to be able to give me, especially not built in. But it also works inside the gallery. So I can use the S Pen to swipe between photos in the gallery. So I can imagine showing holiday photos on TV and swiping using the S Pen to move back and forth inside that holiday album that I'm showing off, for example. That same interactivity works inside PowerPoint. You can hold down the button and swipe that way to go to the next slide and go the other way to go back, or just a simple single press will progress the PowerPoint presentation forward as well. I did actually use that on my Tab S9 Ultra and I loved it. I did a whole presentation, the trivia that I host, using that S Pen and Samsung DeX. But it also works in music and media apps. You can use it to start Spotify songs. You can use it to skip Spotify songs. I haven't demonstrated it, but inside media, you can control the volume by holding it down and flicking it up. Genius. It also extends into YouTube, where you can pause YouTube videos using the S Pen. Just a really great tool. And that's not all. Samsung, as I said, extended it into the UI. If you do a down-up, it'll do something. If you do an up-down, it'll do something. If you do hold the button and do that, it will give you a screen write. So it'll take a screenshot and allow you to write directly on the screen. So much cool stuff that this can do. And the S Pen, once you're done with it, you just slide it away and it'll charge inside the phone. Some miscellaneous stuff to sort of finish off. You can use the keyboard and the S Pen. So press the little button here and you can write in the keyboard area and it'll turn that to digital text into the field. But you can also just hover the pen over a search field and then write directly into that search field using the S Pen as well. And inside the settings, there's stuff to turn on regarding losing the S Pen, and there's some more other features as well, reminding you when you've left it behind, S Pen sounds, all that stuff's in this extra S Pen settings menu. So you can go check out and figure out which ones you like to activate from in there as well, like making the pen vibrate when you pull it in and out, for example. So this little pen is so powerful and can do so much. And a lot of people dismiss it as, oh, just get rid of the S Pen. Never. This thing sitting inside here transforms this phone from just a regular slab smartphone into this productivity and entertainment powerhouse. Hopefully you've got a lot out of it. Hopefully you now learn how to use the S Pen. If you have got something out of it, let me know which S Pen feature you're excited to try out with your own S24 Ultra. Make sure you subscribe because, as usual, there's a lot of Samsung content to come and a lot already on the channel, so you can go and check some of those out. Come and follow me on my socials, Twitter/X, and also on Instagram. I'll see you in the next one. You!